Okay, good morning everyone. Sorry, I was just running a minute late there, but we are ready to go, I think. So we are continuing on with our spooky Halloween picture here using our pan pastels. And we're going to start working on the pumpkin today. So good morning, EB, and good morning, Lisa. Nice to see you guys here. And I think I'm just going to jump right into it. So I've got everything listed down in the description below. I do have a couple of pastel pencils set off to the side just in case we need to add some details or anything in, but I think we'll be able to use our pan pastels for most of this. And what I'm going to do first here is just take my little craft knife. And what I've done with my masking film is I've cut out separately the stem, the eyes, and the mouth. So I'm going to try to remove just the pumpkin part, and we'll start working on this, and then we'll kind of be able to avoid those areas more easily. How is everybody's Halloween going so far? It's still pretty early here. So I'm going to see if I can just gently, so I just run this gently along the edge until I can lift up that masking film. And then I just start peeling it off. And I'm going to hold down around the eyes where I cut off just to make sure that stays good there. Now I could have had this off and ready to go, but I really wanted you guys to see how I do this. So again, I'm just, holding down around the mouth. And I may not have cut everything out perfectly because I kind of did this quickly, so we'll see. I might have to go over and fix some of the areas. Lisa says quiet. Yeah, well, that's always good. It's always nice to have a quiet morning or a quiet day. Oops. And I'm just sort of re-cutting it a little bit if I've missed any of those edges. And you can just see how tedious this can be doing this, but it does really help when you're trying to keep different areas separate. Okay. So I noticed there's one little spot there that didn't quite make it, so I'm just going to grab a little piece of what I already had and just try to fit that down. So I just tore a little piece off, and I'm just going to try to fit this down here. Just to cover that spot. And then I'll just cut off that little piece that's sticking over the edge. Just like that. So now we've got the stem still covered, the eyes and the mouth. And I'm just going to quickly check with chat again here because I see a few more people have come in. Good morning, Corey. Nice to see you here. Lisa says, almost a rough day to start. Thought our Keurig went on the fritz. Turned out it didn't. Like me today, and Stan got it working, thankfully. Oh no, that's not a good morning when you don't have coffee on the go. Corey says, oh gosh, I miss coffee. Since COVID, I can't taste or smell things. I can taste or not tasting like they should. Things not tasting like they should. Yeah, coffee tastes weird. Hope it gets better. I hope so too. I hope you're feeling better, Corey. I really do. That really does suck. So I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and I'm just going to lightly get rid of some of these lines. So you can see the masking film does lift up some of the graphite, which is good because I put it down dark because of that. But I'm just going to lift up just a little bit extra. Because I don't want too much showing through. But again, these are in the grooves of the pumpkin, and the grooves are going to be a little bit darker. So if it does show through a little bit, it's not a big deal. But I don't want the graphite mixing with the pastel. So that's why I'm just going to try to get rid of any excess that's right on the surface of it. I'm feeling better, but I have no energy. COVID saps it so bad. Yes, absolutely it does. I just got my booster shot, so my third vaccine for COVID this week, and I was out for like 2 days. It took me out just getting the vaccine, so I can't imagine getting COVID itself. Like, I was exhausted. I had a fever. I had chills. I got tested and I'm negative, obviously, and I knew it was just from the vaccine, and it could be too because I got my flu shot one day and then I got the COVID vaccine the next day, which may not have been the most smartest thing to do, but it was available, so I got it. All right, so I'm gonna use those soft tools that I did from the last time, and I'm just gonna start putting in the colors of the pumpkin. Now, on the reference photo of our pumpkin, it's more dark on this side and down at the bottom, but because we did the background dark on the sides and light in the middle, we're gonna have to sort of shift our shadows over so that it's sort of more dark around the edges and lighter in the middle. So just keep that in mind while we're doing this. And I'm gonna start getting in some of the lighter areas. So I'm going to pick maybe I'll start with this light yellow here in this. So this is Hansa yellow and Derylide yellow. And I'm just going to sort of mix them together a little bit and just see what color this gives me. Maybe just a little bit more of the Hansa yellow. And so I'm just putting this in just to make sure we keep our bright areas. And I'm going to put this sort of more in the middle. I still need to get my flu vaccine. We all caught COVID, so we didn't go. Yeah. That's kind of hard, eh? But I think the rest of your family was starting to feel better, right, Corey? Thank you, Lisa. Yes, I would appreciate if you guys could give the video a like, and if you think somebody might enjoy this content, then certainly do share. So I'm just mixing that Hansa yellow and Derylide yellow just to get the brightest areas in the middle of the pumpkin strips, grooves, whatever they are right now. EB says, yeah, I think Halloween should be celebrated on Friday or Saturday in October. Yes, I completely agree. Sunday's sort of the day where you're like recouping, doing laundry, getting ready for the week. So then to have to kind of go out and do all the Halloween stuff, it's kind of, but it's always fun, right? It's always fun. And here they've sort of put, so last year we didn't have Halloween because we were in lockdown mode. But this year they are allowing, you know, kids to go out, but they're saying that they have to go out in their family's bubble only. And they can't get together with other kids. But I don't think there's like a restriction on where they can go, like say their own neighborhood or anywhere else. I think they can go anywhere. But it sort of doesn't make sense because when they're at school, they're around all their friends all day, right? So sometimes the rules are just kind of like, huh? So they can be around their friends all day and on the weekend, but when they're out trick-or-treating, they have to, you know, split up. Like, that to me just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, when I start getting towards the sides, I'm going to keep the lighter area closer to that groove here. And then it's going to be much darker over here. And same with the other side. Yes, my whole family bounced back. They're totally fine. I'm the one still suffering. Oh no. Well, I hope, you know, they're paying you back with all your good deeds by taking care of you now. And EB says, I've already got lots of candy. Hopefully I get some kids. Yeah, I hope so too. It's always fun seeing all their like little costumes and stuff. Oh, you don't get any trick-or-treaters, Corey? Huh? Is it because you live out? Yeah, you live out in the country. Okay. Yeah, that's no fun, but that happens in those areas. Because you gotta have somebody to drive you around from house to house, and if you don't, it's quite a walk. So whenever I get up to the masking film too, I always try to brush away from it instead of brushing into it, just because you could lift it and transfer some of that color. Now I'm going to do a little bit on the bottom, but a lot of this is going to be pretty dark too. So I don't have to worry about putting too much down, but just a little bit. Yeah, Corey says it's such a long walk between the houses. It is. It's kind of a bummer living out there. But then there's lots of pluses because you're not so close to the city. You don't hear all the city noises. You know, you feel a little more, I don't want to say isolated, but like you feel more free in your space because you don't have your next door neighbors like breathing down your neck when you're outside doing something. So we're definitely going to need to do some layering with this pumpkin just to get the depth of color that we need. And we'll definitely be adding in some more colors to get some of those richer colors. But I like to always start, you know, with my base colors. And you want to make sure that you're keeping your bright areas too. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little bit more in this area. Okay, so now I want more of like an orangey color, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that Derelid yellow and my orange and just see how this looks. And I'm going to try it over here in the darker area, and that's kind of a nice orange color. And I'm just sort of getting this on either side of those grooves in the pumpkin right now. And then once we get things blended together, it'll look a little better. And I am going to bring this color down a bit more. And as I get a little bit less of it on my tool, I will start blending it into the lighter yellow that we've laid down. You're on Main Street, EB, and sometimes you don't get any trick-or-treaters. So I'm assuming Main Street's like the main street of where you live. I'm working on buying more pan pastels. I love them. Yeah, I saw your haul video and you got a few of them for your backgrounds, I think you said. Pan pastels are so nice to work with. They're very addicting. I find them very, like, almost therapeutic to work with it. And to be honest, it's sort of like the best of both worlds between like colored pencils and watercolor, because you can still get like nice out of focus backgrounds with them, but you can also get some details with them. And colored pencils and pastel pencils both lay over them really nicely. So you can sort of do a little bit of everything with them. And they're not as messy, of course, as regular pastels. So I much enjoy that. So I'm making sure I get a little bit of it like up at the grooves of the top too. It's a little more orangey up there. More and more kids trick or treat less these days. They go to trunk or treats instead of it. What's trunk or treats? I've not heard of that. So we're just laying our base colors in. Once we get our base colors in and blend everything out, it'll come together better. Trust the process, like the background. That is where a bunch of cars set up in a parking lot and people hand out candy. Oh, okay, I didn't realize that, but that seems a lot more convenient. I wish that was a thing when I was a kid. Yes, please give me the candy. It's a US thing. Oh, okay. Well, we should start that here in Canada. Because that would have been super fun to do. And then you get home earlier and eat your candy. Yeah, I've never heard of that in Canada either, Lisa. Less work as a kid that way. And Corey is right, they will decorate the cars as well. Oh, okay, I missed that part. That's fun. That's really fun. I mean, there's something about like traditional trick-or-treating though, where you're going door to door. Like there is something about that, but you know, especially for areas where you would live way out, just to bring all the kids to one area would be really cool too. So I'm grabbing a little bit more of that orange over on the sides here, just to get that dark color started. Lisa says, when I was a kid, I used to get 2 to 3 pillowcases full of stuff. Yes, I remember we used to go around with pillowcases too. And when I was a kid, people used to actually do like homemade stuff too. Like you would get Rice Krispie squares, you know, brownies, mostly from homes like that you knew the kids of, I feel like. But still, that was kind of fun. They would have like a special bag done up for like their kids' friends. So I quite enjoyed that as well. Yeah, they get tons of candy in 20 minutes. Yeah, Corey. That's always fun. It's like super trick-or-treating. You get done quick, you get to go home, watch your shows, eat your candy. It's the perfect night. So this first layer always takes the longest because we're just trying to fill in the white of the PastelMat. Now you could choose another color like underneath of the PastelMat, but the brights that I want in the pumpkin, like I want the yellows and the oranges to be really bright. So that's why I chose white. So just know if you do have another color of paper that you're using, you won't ever be able to get your brights as bright as they will be on white paper. And sometimes that's fine. It just depends what you're going for. Yeah, the days of homemade treats. So I'm just sort of working my way around the pumpkin, and I'm trying to be careful around these edges. But I don't want to put too much pastel down either, because we'll come over and make this quite dark. But I just want a light coloring so that it will sort of show through a little bit. But I don't really have to go right up to the edges down here. Because as you'll see, it'll pick up some of that dark pastel there and transfer it. But luckily, that's fine around these edges. And if I did get some dark pastel on there, I'm just going to wipe it off a little bit. And I'm just going to see, yeah, okay. I'm almost at 1K? No. I think I'm still a little ways off. Unless all of a sudden I got a bunch of people coming in, which that would be amazing, but I think I'm only at 800 something. I mean, but yes, absolutely. Please do subscribe and like the video. It definitely does help my channel out, and I super appreciate it. I appreciate every one of you guys that show up to my videos, watch my videos, like them, comment, or even if you're just lurking in the background, I still super appreciate that. But I'm growing, yes. Yeah, it seems to kind of go in like little jumps, I've noticed. I'll gain some and then it seems to kind of, you know, stall a little bit, then I'll gain a little bit more, and then it seems to stall again. I'm going to kind of be careful, and I'm going to wait to do the edges. I'll go in with a smaller tool to do some of the edges, just because I notice I'm picking up some from the background. So I'll just work on the inside of the pumpkin for right now. And I'm trying really hard to keep my hand off the paper. But if you guys need to, you could always put like a sheet of Glassine or clean paper down. That absolutely helps. Just make sure if you're moving it around, don't just move it around like this, like lift it up and then move it. Otherwise you will smudge your pastel around. The pan pastels leave minimal amounts of dust on the surface, but it does leave a couple little pieces here and there. So just be aware of that, you know, when you're moving your paper around, or even your hand on the pastel. So for some of these edges, I'm going to take just the orange, just to get it nice and dark. Yeah, EB, you're definitely growing too. That's amazing. Congratulations. It's so fun to have like, to watch channels, you know, grow up. Because I started watching your channel quite a while ago, almost at the beginning, I would say. And it's been so fun to see it like transform and grow. And I absolutely love your streams over on Twitch. So if you guys don't know, EB streams over on Twitch, and it's sort of like little real-time stuff like this, and she streams quite a few days during the week. I know she streams after this live stream on Sundays. She streams Saturdays, and I think maybe Fridays over there. And she does stuff like this, just real-time sits and chats, and it's quite enjoyable and very peaceful. And I think that's why I like it, because I like, you know, peaceful streams, and they're very peaceful to me. And then of course, I'm sure you guys know Corey. Corey streams over on YouTube as well, and they both have channels. So if you guys haven't already, I would definitely suggest checking them out. They have both been a huge help to my channel and very nice supporters. So it's always nice to be able to support each other. EB says, I know I've gotten better since I first started. Yeah, definitely you have. And I noticed, well, I hope I have as well. You know, it's sort of like, I kind of see it as when you're first starting YouTube, you don't really know what you're doing. You're just kind of getting a camera, making some videos, and I feel like I have improved over time. And it sort of makes me sit down and take time to do my art, because I noticed, you know, for a while there, I wasn't really making as much art as I would like to. So having a place to come where, you know, I have to say, you know, I have to make art for videos, or I have to be there for the live stream, it sort of forces me to sit down and get it done. And sometimes I actually enjoy having that, you know, something to do. So for me, that's a good motivator to get things done. Just bringing this orange up a little bit more on the bottom. Just because there's only a little bit of light really that shows at the bottom. I'm just going to add a little bit more of this light in here. Just bring that back. Okay, so I'm going to go down to one of these little tools. Now, this is a soft tool also, but it sort of reminds me of like a eye applicator when you're putting on eyeshadow. And I'm just going to try to get around the edges with this, because this is very tiny. And I'm just going to take that orange, just the orange, and sort of try to get in there and get right around those edges. And then we'll blend this layer, and then we'll go on top and start creating some depth. And make it look a little more 3D looking. And luckily everything's been going well with the stream so far. I'm always worried that it's going to start messing up. But so far so good. EB says, yeah, or Corey says the first 1K is the hardest. Yeah, I'm feeling it. I don't want to I'm trying not to set a goal to say I want to hit 1K by this time, because then I don't want to get disappointed if I don't hit it. But, I mean, obviously, the sooner the better. But it's always exciting when you come on and you see you have new subscribers, new people. I'm always like, yay. Because then that also gives you a little bit of reassurance, like, oh, people are enjoying my content, you know. They want to see more of it, so that's always exciting. Okay, I'm not going to worry about too much about getting up to the edges down there, but I do want to make sure I get that orange up here. EB says, Corey, you inspire me to color more on Twitch. There isn't a lot of channels that do that on Twitch. I got more coloring books coming. Yes. Yeah, and even just watching somebody color on a coloring page, like, it's very relaxing. And you can still make beautiful, beautiful artwork from a coloring page, and both of you do that. So I really enjoy that. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and just take my finger, and I do have my baby wipes, but they're across the room, so I might go get them afterwards, but I'm just going to start blending this out. And when I mean blending, I mean I'm just pushing the pastel into the PastelMat so that we can go on top with other layers. And again, I always start with the lightest areas. And it sort of blends the edges a little bit too. But I want to get this in so that we can get some more layers on top and then really start creating our pumpkin guy. So I'm going to avoid the outermost edges just right now and sort of keep it more in this middle area. Oh, you're very welcome, EB. Oh no, it froze. Is it better now? Yeah, I had to jinx it, didn't I? Just my luck. Just my luck. So pushing it in like this, and you could use Q-tip, you could use, you know, a blending stump, anything like that. I just find my fingers easy to do, but pushing it in like this just helps create like a nice smooth surface again to go over with our pastels, because if we get too many layers on top, then the pastel's not going to stick to it on top and it's just going to come right off. So if you're noticing that, then maybe you need to sort of do this. Okay. So I am just going to grab one of my baby wipes real quick and just clean my finger. Okay. And then I'll dry it off. And now we're going to go in with some of our darker colors. So we need sort of a more like dark burgundy brown color, and especially in the middle of these areas here. So I'm going to mix, I think I'm going to mix some of the orange maybe with a little bit of the burnt sienna and maybe a hint of red oxide. I'm just going to see kind of what this sort of gives me. That gives me sort of like dark burgundy color down there. Okay, and then I'm just going to see how the orange and the red oxide gives me just a little bit more. Maybe the orange and the red, because I'm looking for like, yeah, that like nice red orange. Okay. So I'm going to stick with that color for now, and then we'll throw in that red oxide down lower when it needs to get a little bit darker and in the grooves. So I'm just mixing the orange and the permanent red. And you can see it's just trial and error. I just mix and go. But now once we blend this layer again, get it pushed down a little bit, it's not going to look so, you know, in your face, if that makes sense. Oh, that's great. Do you mean the colors? The colors that I'm using? Yeah, I like this combination, I think. Loving it. Oh, thank you so much, EB. You guys are so sweet. So now I have to be careful with, like, I want to make sure I'm keeping some of my lights there, but I don't want it to be too much too. So I'm sort of like still playing with the ratio. So I'll do the darker areas first. And then once I get sort of a ratio that I like, I'll go up more. And I really don't need a lot of that red. That red is very, very overpowering. So you see I do a few of these and just barely tap it into that red. And that sort of gives me that color I'm looking for. I don't know if you guys can hear my shoulder snapping. I don't know what's going on. I guess it's old age setting in, getting older. Every day getting a little older. You're making me want this set. Yeah, like that's why I say just the 20 set here, you can accomplish so much because the colors just mix so beautifully, so amazingly. Like, oh, cat hair. I just love mixing them, and I mix them usually right on the pans themselves, and they mix so nicely. You're sounding like me when I get up in the morning. Yeah, yeah. So I'm definitely going to have to go in with a little bit more orange, like, and cover up some of that yellow. But that's the nice thing of laying that yellow down first. You know, we're not risking getting rid of too much of the yellow because it's harder to go later over the pastels. You can, but it will never be as light as when you first put it down. Oops, wrong one. So it'll never be, you know, as light as that first layer. But now it's easier to kind of go in and adjust too. And I'm just kind of just dragging that color out just slightly. Just in some of these areas here. Oh, hello, Shadow. Very nice to see you here. Good morning. How are you doing today? I'm so happy. It sort of worked out a little bit better pushing the stream back a little bit because then more of you are able to join. So I enjoy that as well. So we'll probably keep our streams starting at 11 for that reason. But I know EB and Corey, you guys, you know, stream after this. So if you guys have to leave early, you know, don't worry about it. Go ahead. You guys can step out whenever you need to. I just appreciate you guys being here for any length of time. And I'm starting to bring that darker color down here too. You'll go set up in about 35 minutes. Okay, perfect. Oh, thank you, Shadow. The pumpkin's coming along. Yeah. Yeah, once you start getting, you know, some darker areas in there, creating some darks, getting the lights in there, it will come together. It just looks a little cartoonish at first until you sort of get everything going. That's why I always say trust the process, because there's always that ugly stage with art, and you kind of put colors down and then you're like, oh, that's not how I imagined it in my head, but it just means you're not done. Just keep layering. It's a nice thing with art. You're not done until you say you're done, until you decide. And as you guys probably know from most of my streams, the end stage is my favorite part, where you're like putting in those last little details, and I could just continue doing that forever and ever and ever. So sometimes I sort of have to just step back and say, okay, you know, I have to put it away now, and then you can always come back to it. I like coming back to stuff like a week, maybe a couple of weeks later, and then having another look at it, and you'll have a better idea of, you know, if you want to change anything or if you're good with it. So that's usually how I end up doing it. Oh, and from our last stream too, I forgot to mention at the beginning, but I did add a few more of like those little branches just coming in from the sides. Like I mentioned, I might, just to sort of help frame it a little bit more, because it looked a little bare over there. So that's all I did. So I'm still just using that orange and the permanent red right now, but I will add in some iron oxide for some more shadowy type areas. Me too, I don't know when to stop touching it. Yeah, and you know, there's always a point where you can go too much, and then you all of a sudden are like, oh no, I've gone too much, I've ruined it. So there's a very fine point where, you know, you're adding a little too much. So that's why sometimes you need to just step back and leave it alone and almost like let it breathe for a bit, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go in with just some of that orange, just touch up any areas that I need to, and then I'll add some darker areas in here. You keep telling yourself it will never be enough. Never. Yep. Yep. That is absolutely true. So I'm sort of trying to keep like in these like curve areas too. So I want to keep everything curved, going with the curves of the pumpkin. And I want to make sure I'm keeping it even. So if I'm bringing it over this way a little bit, I need to make sure I bring the top part and the bottom parts in too, so that it sort of makes sense. And that's another nice thing with this masking film, is we don't have to worry, you know, about all these little parts that we'll worry about afterwards. Okay, I'm just going to wipe that off. Just grab a little bit of that yellow just to help blend some of the edges. And you know what? I think I'll grab a clean tool for that, just because it's sort of muddying it a little bit where I've already got those oranges on. There we go. And just laying a little bit more of this down will just help it blend together better when I blend after. Because we put more of the pan pastel in the other areas, and this doesn't have any more, so it's not going to transition as nicely. So you got to be aware of that too. If you add it in one area and you want to blend it into another area, it's good to add it to both areas. And you don't have to add a lot, just a little. Shadow Guard says, what is masking film? I remember you mentioning it last week. So I actually have a video showing how I use masking film on my channel. So you can check that out. But it's sort of like the equivalent if you were using masking fluid for colored pencils. So you put it down and you can see here how these areas are staying like blank, like white. So I could put the pastel on it, but it's not going on the PastelMat because I have those pieces of masking film. And at the beginning, I took like the masking film just off the pumpkin area, but I left it here because I had cut around those areas previously already. So that just kind of helps keep your areas cleaner, and you don't have to worry about being super precise, so I can go over these areas without worrying. Then I can take these off and then work on those areas. So it just makes it a little more easier that way. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. You don't have to have it, but it's just sort of a convenience factor. And the one that I'm using is Frisket. It's Frisket, and I got it on Amazon. And it just comes in a long like sheet rolled up, and I just cut off what I need, stick it on, and then I use like one of these little X-Acto knives, and I just cut around it and then peel off what I don't need. Super convenient. And especially when doing lives like this. Oh, it's a sheet. Great, thanks. Yeah, well, it's like rolled up. So it's a really long sheet, but it's rolled up. I have it here. Just give me 1 second and I'll show you what it sort of looks like. So it's rolled up like this, and it's in a long sheet. And this is the masking film side, and this is the other side. So you can sort of lay it down, and you can just barely see over your image you see here. So you could either trace it out that way and cut it out, or what I normally do is just cut like a piece like this, lay it over, and then I'll cut around it. But you can do it either way like that. So it's quite convenient. Or if you already did your image on tracing paper, you could lay that over top of tracing paper. Sometimes depending how dark your lines are, you might have a hard time seeing through it. So I like to use like a light box or something. If you had a light box, then it makes it a little bit easier to see, but you won't see through the PastelMat with the light box. Oh, you're very welcome. I hope that helps. Oh, you can get it in a liquid as well. Yeah, masking fluid is liquid, but I wouldn't put that on PastelMat. I don't know how well that would do on PastelMat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start getting some more of these darker areas in. So I'm taking that red iron oxide now, and I'm going to start putting these in my darkest areas, and I may even throw in a little hint of that burnt sienna, just for like a brown, a little hint of brown in there, and we'll see how that looks. Just sort of mixing those three together. So I hope you guys can see how that's starting to give it some really nice definition there. And I might even try using the raw umber just instead, and I'll try it down here. Ooh, that makes it really nice and dark. So for my darker areas, I might use the raw umber because that's what we used in the background too. And then for some of those lighter areas, I'll use the burnt sienna. So I'm just going to sort of go between those two colors. That makes a lovely color. Yes, it does. The colors help. Oh, perfect. Yeah, and these I don't want to blend out too much just yet. I want to keep them like fairly in the groove areas, because these are really darkest shadows. So you can see in the grooves, they're more just right along that area. Oops, I wanted that one. Yeah. And again, a lot of this is going to be really dark down here too, but you know, when you have an area where it's dark like this and you know you're going to go over top, like that's a good area to test your colors out on. Or if you've got a blank piece of paper off to the side, you can blend your colors on that as well, or test it out on that. And you know, when you're not sure, that's a good idea so that you don't end up ruining your piece. But sometimes, you know, it's just trial and error, trying to find a good color combination. I bought liquid frisket, can't wait to use it. Okay, like liquid frisket for watercolor? Or does it say you can use it for pastels too, like on PastelMat? I'm intrigued by that. For watercolor. Okay, yeah. My favorite masking fluid is from Winsor & Newton. It's the yellow tinted one, and I like that one just because it's tinted so you can see very easily where you're putting the colors down. I'm gonna grab just a hint more of that orange in there. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe off most of that color there, and I'm gonna start using the burnt sienna now, and I'm gonna start bringing that up along these grooves. There's not a huge of a difference, but and I'm just barely touching up here. I want it to be a nice, as thin as it can be, and I could probably even go down and use that smaller tool that I was using earlier, and actually I might do that for this. How do you remove the masking fluid? I also have a video showing that actually, but you can use, there's a tool that you can use, it's like a little rubber tool, or you can just use a face cloth or your finger just to remove the masking fluid. So just rubbing over it and removing it with your finger works just as well. Or if you don't want to put your finger on your artwork, you can use a face cloth, and I think I show both of those methods in the video. I have a video showing you how to apply the masking fluid so that you're not ruining your brushes, your good brushes. But I wouldn't, you know, I still wouldn't use my most favorite, best brush to apply masking fluid, just in case. But I do have a video showing that. Showing both ways. I have a yellow lumpy gum eraser. That would probably work too. I will look for your videos. Perfect. And if you guys have any other videos like that that you want me to make, you know, just if you have any little questions or a little quick video might help explain it, let me know, because I certainly don't mind making like little videos like that. Because I'm a very visual person. I like to see it to get it. So sometimes that helps people more. So when these lines get more curved to one side or the other, I am trying to slightly have it more to the side of the line where I have it here, just because that's where the shadow would be. But of course the shadow would overlap a little bit onto both sides too. So I mean, it doesn't matter really, but I try to keep it more to one side. And then I just sort of lightly blend it the other way too. On Tuesday's stream, I'm going to be starting my Christmas ornaments. Ooh, nice. Do you have any ideas for what you're doing yet? And I'm just sort of bringing this to either side a little bit, because there's some of these areas where the shadow kind of goes up a little, but I don't need too much at the top. I'm like, you know, loosely following my reference photo, as you guys can probably tell. Gonna try to learn to do flannel. Interesting. That would be interesting to watch. And I'm just lightly blending this area out a little bit more towards the outside there. And I'm going to do the same on this side, just bring that darkness out a little bit more. And then again, I'm just making sure I really get up to some of these edges. And I'm gonna go back in and add just a little bit more orange before I blend into some of these areas. And then we'll go ahead and blend again and then see if we need to make any more adjustments or we can move on. And maybe some winter snowmen, penguins. I want to put Merry Christmas also. Very nice. So I'm just taking that orange right now. Might do a video on YouTube as well of me making them using wooden circles. Yes, you should do that. That would be so fun. So I'm just bringing the orange into the yellow a little bit, sort of like just lightly, ever so lightly blending it, helping it. Okay, and then I'm going to start getting some more of that dark down here, so I'm going to go with that umber and just start getting this in the bottom here. And then we'll go ahead and blend. Might even put a touch of red in there, just see how that looks. And again, I'm not worrying about really going right up to the edges because we're going to have to add some black into this afterwards to get it nice and dark. But I want to make sure we get our nice vibrant colors in first. We can make things darker, but again, it's hard to, you know, brighten up once you've laid that dark color down. Hand make ornaments every year. That's amazing. Good for you. That's got to be so fun to do. Shadow says, sorry, I'm hogging the live stream. No, you're not. That's fine. I love questions. I've been looking at pastel pencils. I remember one video, I've forgotten whose it was, and the colorist was saying the Faber Castell pencils were firm. Do they lay down smoothly? Yes, they both lay down smoothly. So I use both the Carbothello and the Pitt pastel pencils. And I have both mostly because their colors vary a little bit better. So I find the Carbothellos have a little bit brighter colors, like more bright saturated colors, and the Pitt pastels have more like muted colors. So I'm going to take that iron oxide and that raw umber and just start getting that right here to create some of those shadows. And I might even add just a touch of black now. Yeah, so it depends what color I'm looking for, depends which one I will choose, but I like them both. But the Carbothellos are like more soft, so when you lay them down you'll get more dust versus the Pitt pastels. They are harder, so you won't have as much dust with them, but it depends. So what you're looking for. So because back here I needed a hard pencil that would go over top of the layers of pastel that we've already put down, like it's almost like sort of grooving it away, I chose to use some of the Pitt pastels for the branches back there. But if you want to lay over top and make sure, you know, your color like blends in nicer, then the carbothellos do a better job of that. So it sort of just depends what you're looking for, I guess, which one I choose. But honestly, I choose either of them almost interchangeably. The difference is very small, if any, you know. But just so you're aware, yeah, the pits are a little bit harder and you won't get as much dust with them. But their colors are more muted too. So if you are looking for, you know, more animals, if you want to draw animals, nature, then I would go for that one. If you want to draw more botanicals and bright things, then I would probably choose the carbothellos. So I hope that helps. So I'm just putting this color just lightly here at the top of the teeth. And you can see with this PastelMat paper just how many layers we're really able to get. It's really cool. So you can just keep layering almost indefinitely. Okay, but I'm not going to worry about that being perfect. And again, we will go ahead and blend. But because I do have a bit of pastel on the surface now and I can see some dust somewhere, if I just start blending right now, that dust is going to blend into those colors. So I'm just going to take my little puffer thing real quick and puff this dust off into the garbage can. Now I would usually lift this up and just tap it into the garbage can, but I have it taped down just so it won't move on me for the stream. So I'm just going to be quiet for a second so I don't inhale this, and I'm just going to puff it into the garbage. Okay. So you can see, you know, our main areas still stayed down nicely. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and blend with my finger, and I'm going to start in the light areas and blend to the dark areas. And I apologize if I'm missing anybody's comments. I'm not doing it on purpose, but I will try to look up again and just see if I've missed anything in a minute. But if you have, you know, a question or a comment and you absolutely want it answered, then make sure to put question or put it in caps or put a Q, something to kind of let me know. Because sometimes I think you guys are just talking amongst yourselves, and I mean, you are, and that's fine, but I don't ever want to miss anybody's questions if they're trying to get a hold of me, if you're trying to get my attention. So I'm blending those more orangey areas now, but I'm still avoiding the darkest areas just yet. Now I was hoping we would get this finished in all in today's stream, but apparently I'm being a little nitpicky and perfectionist. But you know what? I'd rather have, you know, a piece of artwork that I am proud of at the end of the day, and, you know, take a little bit longer to create it and then you're happy with it. So we might end up doing one more stream of this, and I hope you guys are okay with that. So I am hitting those dark areas now. And I don't want to move them out or smudge them too much, so I'm sort of just going right over top of them. Let me just take a second here and just check chat while I'm doing this. EB says, I love the Inktense pencils, but watercolor, oh, colored pencils are nice over watercolor. Yes, they are. You can put the Inktense pencils over watercolor as well, just so you know. But they are, the Inktense is permanent, right? So you still won't be able to move it, but it's not going to mess up the watercolor underneath of it as long as you're using, you know, permanent colors, depending if you're going to blend out with water or not. So then you might want to choose colored pencils if you don't want to blend it out. But you can use the Inktense pencils just dry too. That's fine too. No problem. So you mean no problem doing another stream of this where we can do the eyes and the mouth maybe? So I'm thinking pastel pencils might be better than the pan pastels. EB says November has pumpkins. Yes. And yes, I'm fine with it. Doing another stream. Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I want it, you know, I want this guy to look really cool and creepy, and we're getting there, but it's not there yet. Now I hope you guys are seeing the contrast that I'm seeing here in person. Like I can really start to see, you know, the shape of the grooves taking place, and I'm sort of smudging this color around down at the bottom a little bit more too, to start getting more of that darkness in there. Shadow was talking about using pastel pencils over watercolor. Yeah, you could do that too. Absolutely. You know, there's really not too many rules when it comes to art. Well, really, there's no rules when it comes to art. Unless you're selling your art, then you just want to make sure that you're using archival materials. But other than that, there's really no rules. Okay, I like how that's looking, I think. Actually, I might just blend some of these yellow spots again. See, the perfectionist in me is coming out. There. So I'm just taking that baby wipe, wiping my fingers off. Corey says, great stream, my dear. I need to get going, ready for mine, but this looks great. Okay, have a great day, Corey, and I will try to stop by and see your stream afterwards, but I do have a few things to do after. So thank you for stopping by. Always a pleasure. Let me just catch up with chat here real quick. EB says I had some cider mill donuts this morning with apple cider as well. Ooh, that sounds delicious. I do like apple. Is it apple cider or eggnog? No, I don't like eggnog. I like apple cider, I think. Shadowguard says I ate pancakes with chocolate chips on top this morning. I think Shadow wins that one. I would take the pancakes and chocolate chips all day. Okay, so we have another half hour here. I think what we'll do is we'll leave the pumpkin skin where it's at because we still got to go in and add some of the darks around it. But I want to start getting in some of the other areas because I can see now in the viewfinder the contrast is looking okay, but once we get some more darks like of the background coming in, but maybe we'll go in and start putting like the stem in, and then maybe we'll do the base layers for the eyes and the mouth, and we'll see how far we can get with that today. So I'm going to peel that stem part off. Now, because the stem is such a small area, I did pick out a couple of pencils, so I'll let you know right now. So I've got the Faber Castell 165 and 172. So 172 is going to be like my lighter color, and 165 is going to be my darker color. So I've got to get a color that's sort of like in between, and these are a little bit more like muted grayish colors. So because of the background, I thought that would look pretty good. So I'm going to grab another one. I think this is the one I used for the background, so this will be okay. And I'm going to grab, let me see, I think I'm going to grab maybe some gray, some permanent green, and I'm just going to see how that looks. Yeah, I kind of like that. Maybe just a bit more green than that. And this is such a small area, I'm going to have to be kind of careful. And maybe add a touch of that chromium oxide green in there just to green it up a little bit. And I'm just going to carefully get this color down. I don't know if you guys can hear outside here, but it is raining a little bit. I'm going to stick with that chromium oxide green. I kind of like that color that I'm getting. And I'm just trying to use like the very edge of this tool to get in to the corners. Just trying to be pretty careful around the edges. But again, this is sort of like a darker color, and it would blend easier into the background than the orange would, obviously. So if we do overlap into the background or we get some black background colors on, it's not as noticeable as it would be with our pumpkin. I'm scared the tool might go over the edges. Yeah, so you could use that little smaller tool here, or you could just use the pencils for the whole thing. So pick like a mid color, lay it down like this, and then you can go over top with your light and dark pencils. But like I mentioned, you know, here it will blend easier into the background, so I'm not as worried really. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there, wipe it off, and I'm just going to lightly push this layer in just so that our pencils will lay on top nicely. And I'm being very careful around the pumpkin. Although if a little bit of green does come onto your pumpkin up here, it is just going to look like a reflection of the green onto the pumpkin. So it's just going to make it look like it has more detail. So that will work in your favor. So some things aren't always like accidents. They're kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. I love the rain when I'm indoors. Yeah, me too. I don't want to be out in the rain at all. So I'm going to go ahead and start with, the lighter color. So the 172. And I'm going to move this out of the side. Move those little tools away so I can like lay my hand on the side here. And there's a lighter area here, but this is sort of like, oh, you know what? This is almost like the lighter color that I've laid down. So let me see if I can grab maybe an even lighter color. Let's see, what's this one? This is 270. This is like a light gray. That will kind of work a little bit. So see, you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes the color that you chose is too light for the color that you have. So I'm going to use that 165 then, which is the darker green color. And I'll put that in and we'll see if we need to lay any lighter areas in. I love listening to the rain when I'm about to sleep. Oh, yes. So there is a couple of dark areas. So I'm looking at the reference photo because our lines sort of, well, I didn't actually put any lines in here because I knew I could just sort of make it work just looking at the reference photo. But there's sort of like a dark area that comes here. And you can see how these pastel pencils just lay over top beautifully. And there's like another line that sort of comes and connects. And then under here in this shadow area, we've just got, like it's quite dark. And then we've just got some lines sort of coming down from there. We went last night to the movies, watched Venom 2, good movie. Yes, it is a good movie. We watched Venom 2, you know what, I'm going to grab my little piece of glassine here, just lay over top so I can rest my hand on it comfortably. We saw Venom 2 a couple of weeks ago, but we did go and see, so I've got to keep a light area right up here. So I've got to go a little below, and it sort of meets at the edge and then comes down, but not quite all the way. So I'm sort of just trying to lay in some of those areas with the reference photo. It doesn't have to be exact. But we went to see Halloween Kills last night, and that was a really it was a good movie, but I think I liked the first version better. It just kind of like it sets it up okay, but there's some spots where I'm like, okay, so now what? But I still really enjoyed the movie. So I'm going to take that, nope, not that one. Don't like that color. I'm going to take that 270, and this is from the Pitt Pastels as well. Apparently I pulled out more of them for this, and I'm going to use this for some of those lighter areas. So I'm just putting a couple of these little lines in, just like I did the other one. Now I want to help to find this edge just a little bit, just from the background, because it's blending in a little too much. So I am going to just put them in, and then I'm sort of just creating like little lines in between the darker areas that I've put it. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect, right? There's nothing like hearing rain on the roof. Makes me sleep like a baby, yeah. I like having the fan on. Like I do like having some kind of noise in the background, but not necessarily like rain or anything, but I do like having the fan on. And I'm going to go back with that darker color, 165, and just make sure that this is nice and dark in here. And I'm really just pushing at the edges there just to make sure that I get a nice crisp line. And then I'm just gonna blow this dust off real quick. And I just got this on Amazon too. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but this was on Amazon, maybe like $5. It was pretty cheap. And again, I'm just gonna just lightly tap. So I'm not really pushing, I'm sort of just tapping those edges down to get that pastel sort of pushed into the PastelMat with the rest of it. And my baby wipe to get my finger clean. And I like how that looks. I might just go back in and just darken up again right here to make sure this is our darkest areas, so that we don't lose some of that there. And then I'll just lightly blend that in again. Okay. Yeah, white noise. So I find the fan at night is sort of like white noise for me. That works too. That looks like a baby snot sucker. What the heck is a baby snot sucker? Oh, you mean when they, oh, this. I thought you meant this. I was like, what? Yeah, it kind of does. It does, really. But it just sort of puffs the dust out of the way. And that way you're not like contaminating your areas. That's hilarious. Now I'm never not going to be able to see it as that. Okay, so maybe we'll start working on, let's see, we got 20 minutes left. Do you guys want to keep going for the last 20 minutes and work on the eyes and the mouth area, or do you want to save that for next week's stream and we can do that and any last little finishing details? I will leave that up to you guys. So just let me know down in the chat real quick, and I am going to take a water break because I all of a sudden realize I am super parched. Okay. Oh, I've got notifications going off. Shadow says, it's up to you, Naomi. Don't feel like you have to rush your picture. Oh, well, thank you. EB says, I'm good with it. So maybe that's what we'll do, because I don't want to rush too much. So I think, yeah, we'll just, we'll continue on next week. And what we'll do is the eyes and the mouth, and then the last little details to make our pumpkin sort of like fade off into the background. And I'm debating, so I got rid of, I don't want the fireflies because I don't think the fireflies are going to make this look any spookier than it already does. But I'm wondering about like maybe a mist coming from the sides, like a foggy mist. So let me know what you guys think about that. Or do you think just having the pumpkin fading off into the background is good enough? And I mean, once we get there, we'll kind of be able to see a little bit more. But you see, I start having a plan, and then as I'm going and I develop the piece, my plan always changes and evolves over time. So even though I had like a set plan up here, that little picture that I did of a mock-up, you know, I'm still constantly assessing my piece and changing it kind of throughout the piece. And it's always nice to have feedback from you guys too, because sometimes I think one thing will look good, like the fireflies, and then, you know, EB had mentioned, well, maybe that's not going to make it look like creepy and Halloweeny, and I was like, you know what, you're right. So yeah, mist would be really interesting. So we'll see how we're feeling next week, but I think I'll leave that at this one. And I did put a little post up on my community tab again, just for the next project, what you guys want it to work at. I put a flower, a botanical with colored pencils, or I have a deer and background picture with watercolors. So far, I think everybody wanted the botanical one. So if you guys haven't voted and you want to go do that, you can do that on my community page, and that will be our next project. But we will finish this one off next week. So thank you guys so much for joining. Shadow says, unfortunately, I can't access the community tab from my iPad. Oh, okay. Can you do it from your phone? I think you can access it from your phone if you have a phone, but I didn't realize that you couldn't do it on your iPad. Well, you can give me your vote right now, and I think I know what your vote's going to be, Shadow. I think you're going to say the botanical with colored pencils, but I could be wrong. So you can just say it in chat right now, and I will count it. Lisa says it looks really good so far. Looking forward to next week. Thank you guys so much. And Shadow says, yeah. Okay, so I do know you well so far. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining. Happy Halloween. And we will finish this up next week. I super appreciate all of you being here. And have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.